I caution you in your ethical thinking, most people would do it anyway. And that's where you started from, right? Because you were saying 2%, 5%, 10%, 20% until we raised the ante to 60%. And then I'm just plain lazy. I caught, I think, most of the better comments. Okay. Now, my answers on turning in Aunt Emma, I said I would do it in a heartbeat. Unlikely that I would lie about Cheryl's hairstyle. I will not share music or videos. There's all kinds of stuff going on with films. I would take the dollar. I think under utilitarian thinking we're okay on that one, but I would do something about the wallet, and I would never park in a handicapped spot. So, okay, so now let's have some fun. Now, I deliberately emphasize with you ethical dilemmas because that's what I want to show with these film scenes. And if you can get to the film scene in OB Online, and I'm going to work on it because I can't comprehend why it's not working. It's really a solid piece from the Emperor's Club where the teacher played by, I can't remember the actor's name at the moment, but he's talking to a former student and they're dealing with some ethical issues. It's quite good and it's fast. But this one from the film Grumpier Old Men stars the late Walter Matthau and the late Jack Lemmon as Max Goldman and John Gustafson. And in this particular event is toward the end of the film, in which just before this point, or not quite just before it, but the story has led up to the fact that Max Goldman has proposed marriage to Sophia Loren's character, and I don't have her name here. Perhaps it's not important. And she has accepted his proposal. Now, Max and John are getting ready to go to the church for the wedding. And there's music there that implies, get me to the church on time. Now, have in mind, in the decision-making process that it's, especially in the beginning, that Max Goldman, Walter Matthau uses, and eventually what John Gustafson uses, remember that the goal is to get to the church on time. And Max is getting married. Note what happens here. And I want you to also note, I will tell you now that there are multiple moral dilemmas, ethical dilemmas. I would like you to note each one and what the basis of the dilemma is that raises the issues. Really effective at that loud volume. All right, start from the beginning. Remember what the goal was of their activity. They were trying to get to the church on time. Max is supposed to get married. They encounter Sven early on. Was there evidence of a moral dilemma early? Ethical dilemma is the phrase I've used with you. Evidence of an ethical dilemma early in the interactions. I want to see whether you see it and make sure you can see a visualization of an ethical dilemma. All right. What happened after their encounter with Sven? Sven is describing, catfish hunter, he bit the fishing rod and all that kind of stuff. And then Max Goldman, Walter Matthau, does something. Can you remember it all? He purses his lips and cocks his head. And then what did John Gustafson say? Don't even think about it. Right at that moment, it's an ethical dilemma because what was the right thing to do? Go to church. What was the wrong thing to do? Go fishing. What did they decide to do? Go fishing. Now the drama continues. And there's another moment when, I keep forgetting the names of the characters and I have to look at it. John Gustafson says, he throws down the pole or whatever and he stands up and so on. He wants to take the boat and go to shore so he can get to church on time. And what's ironic about that move is that he's not the one getting married. Max is getting married, and John, I presume, is the best man. Was there any effort at moral justification about their decisions? And it's a classic.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Why?
Weddings never start on time.
Weddings never start on time. That's called a rationalization. So as far as Max is concerned, it's okay to not get there on time because weddings never start on time. It's clear that his son, who is the fellow who's sort of frantically standing outside the church, they'll show up or whatever he said, is concerned about them arriving. I suggest that, going back, focus on Max Walter Matthau for a moment. Of the ethics theories that we summarized, and I'll repeat them: utilitarianism, justice, egoism, and rights, which one seemed to drive Max's behavior? Egoism. I think so. And he's dealing with a little bit of guilt to the extent that he had any at all by saying weddings never start on time. Then there was I'm going to suggest that, I'm going to come back to something else in a moment, but the last part of it where they blow off the stop sign and just go racing through it is another example of an ethical dilemma, because they should have stopped and they did not. And obviously it's a staged near accident and the like. Now go back a little bit earlier in the scene. I suggest to you there was an example of the ethic of care. Yes?
Are you referring to the part when you said, like, isn't that the most beautiful thing you've seen? And the other guy was like, going to be so happy to have it mounted on his wall, and then they ended up letting it go?
Yep. The ethic of care was operating here, just so I make sure everybody heard it, talking about they have Catfish Hunter in the boat, admiring the fish, and then there's starting a discussion about putting Catfish Hunter back in the lake. That is a moment of the operation of the ethic of care. Concern for others specifically under the ethic of care. Okay, now let's try another scene. And incidentally, for those in here who have not accessed BizFlix and OB Online at all, I would like you to try it. I need to try to track this down as to why it's not working. I would need to know when you do it, which browser you're using, and what type of connection do you have, and if you're at the university, where are you located, and which system are you using. Please do that for me. It won't take very long, and I can kind of gather some information. Pardon?
These are due next week? Are these due next week?
No, they're due with the examination, which is 2 weeks or so. Okay, page 54 is the description of the original Godfather. And this is a classic film, and usually most people have seen it. And Don Corleone is not played by Marlon Brando. Is not in this particular scene. It occurs quite a bit later. It occurs at Don Corleone's funeral, and after that. Now here it says it starts inside the church. I'm starting it a little bit earlier than that, so it gets a little bit more context. But at this point, Michael Corleone, the son of the Don, is basically emerging as the leader of the family. And the baby, by